Hey, soccer fans, Nick back with the Feed the Fire podcast, where we're talking all things Chicago Fire and Major League Soccer. I hope everyone had a wonderful, happy, blessed Thanksgiving holiday. Hope you enjoyed the long weekend, the time off from work, time to be spent with your family and loved ones, or just doing whatever you wanted to do if you didn't have to go to school or go to work. Now, for me, I ended up taking a week-long vacation with my wife and children. We ended up in Rome, Italy. This was a trip that we had been planning for a very, very long time, and it was the perfect blend of a family trip for my wife and I because I love history and I love to eat, and she loves fashion and travel and big cities, and she enjoys learning about the history of their cities. And also she loves to enjoy Italian cuisine. So we had our fill of pizza, pasta, good wines, and tons of ancient and medieval history, as well as some of the modern history, things going on over in Rome and Italy in the current day. It was a great time. But this is a soccer podcast, so I won't bore you with trips to the Pantheon, the Forum, the Coliseum, though we could make a sports argument for the Coliseum a little bit. My boys did end up fighting each other in the Coliseum, despite our best efforts to not have them cause an international incident, but they did get a few shots in with each other, reenacting some gladiator battles there. But like I said, this is a soccer podcast. I didn't get to take in any games. Unfortunately, Roma and Lazio were both away all week while we were there. There was a Europa League game where Roma hosted Midland, ended up getting the 2-1 victory, but it was a late game. We walked anywhere between 7 to 10 miles a day. We didn't rent a car. We walked. We experienced everything. And so by Thursday night, I was just a little tired. Couldn't stand on my feet anymore. Also, we had some tours and things booked, so we missed the Serie D game, the 4th division in Italian soccer, technically an amateur league. There is a local club in the Trastevere neighborhood called Trastevere Calcio, so we got to go in and see their team shop, hang out in their neighborhood a little bit, but couldn't take in a game, again, due to scheduling conflicts. But they got the win. Roma got the win, so I like to think I brought a little luck to the Italian clubs over the week. I'll keep it simple. So I am sporting my new Roma jersey that I got while I was there. I got one. My son got one. We also, like I said, popped into the Trastevere shop. I ended up getting a Trastevere third kit. My son got a training top, so I think he's telling all his friends that he had a trial with an Italian club while he was over there. We'll see how much they believe him. But I gotta tell you, the kits were cool. The Roma store was cool. The Trastevere store was cool. I'll wear my third kit in the next episode. But there's a beautiful basilica in the Trastevere neighborhood dedicated to the Mother of God. And so their jerseys all reflect patterns from inside the basilica. So the third kit that I have, the black one here, I'll show it to you here, has the marble pattern from the floor imprinted on the kit. The first kit also has some decor from some of the mosaics. The alternate, the away jersey, has the ceiling pattern embossed onto the kit. They all look amazing for a 4th division club. Phenomenal jerseys without a doubt. And by the way, 4th division club, yeah, but they are the home club of none other than Italian great Francesco Totti. Now you can get into that club folded, and this is kind of an homage back when they refounded, but it's Trastevere Calcio. They still claim to have Francesco Totti as one of their youth products, so I'm not going to argue with them. But yeah, if you ever get the chance to go to Rome, not only is the history amazing from ancient times to modern times, not only is the food amazing, but, oh man, they love their football over there. There were Irish pubs in one of the neighborhoods that we walked through, and every game around the world was on at that time. So it was a fantastic sports cultural experience as well. But now let's get back to talking a little MLS. I actually do have a few comments that I wanted to read that some of our listeners left online from over the last several episodes. So on one of our prior episodes, Jose commented, "Yo, can we get a dome?" I agree with you, Jose. It'd be great if we could get a roof over the new stadium. And again, these comments are in response to the discussions on the new MLS calendar, where instead of being a February to November, December league, now they will be a fall to spring league with a winter break. So Jose says, can we get a dome here in Chicago? I'm with you. Though, to be fair, the new calendar 90, it was either 90, 91%, I want to say, of all the games are still going to be played in the same window. Now it's just going to be how they schedule them, right? Chicago is going to be playing more away games during the winter months, or the quote-unquote cold weather cities will be playing more away games in the winter months. So that's going to be a bummer for people living in Toronto, New York, probably even Chicago, Minnesota. But yeah, Jose, it'd be great if they could change the design and get a room. Now, from a legal perspective, or get a dome over the roof. From a legal perspective, everything's already been approved by the Chicago Town Council, so they'd probably have to go through another round of approvals if they wanted to change any of their designs, and I wouldn't want to give the city of Chicago the opportunity to try and get more money out of our club. Now, Dan Nelson also comments saying, if they have us play on the road in November and February to avoid the colder months, we're going to have road stretches that will rival the Blackhawks circus trip. Yeah, no question about that, Dan. And that circus trip, it's kind of a fun, gimmicky thing that the Blackhawks club has embraced. But yeah, it sucks, man. I don't think historically the Hawks do too well on those circus trips. So Dan continues, I don't like the fact that we're losing home games in May and June. Agree that the league needs to loosen their grip on the roster rules for this change to really bear fruit. Now the poor, cheap ownership will have one less excuse as to why they aren't spending. So well said, Dan. I think the league is going to hopefully release some of the roster restrictions as a result of this, because they are saying, it is all about money, right? If they're changing this calendar, it's because they believe they can make more money, whether that's in international viewership, local viewership, transfer fees, whatever the case is. If the league thinks they can make more money by flipping calendars, then that is exactly what's going to happen. They're going to flip the calendar. They did, and hopefully then more money is going to come in to the clubs, allowing them to open up their roster restrictions, sign more players, pay players better wages, keep some of this young talent here in the United States, rather than saying, okay, we got to flip them right away and send them off while they're a hot commodity, and then we can grow the league even more that way. I think it's going to be very much a trickle-down effect there. But no, Dan, you are right that these cheap owners are not going to have any more excuses if this is what happens. If all of a sudden we see, a year or two after the calendar flip, mind you, a year or two after the World Cup as well, so there's going to be a lot of money brought in because of the World Cup. If they release the roster rules, there's going to be definitely a gap that could widen between the clubs willing to spend and the clubs that don't. Fair enough. We also got a message from our friend of the show here, Ryan, about the calendar flip. He says, I've ranted to you previously about the calendar flip, so I'm about to rant again, just shorter. I think this is the wrong move for MLS, and it will stunt their growth. So Ryan coming in with a counterpoint here. And I remind you that this whole calendar discussion, there were always two sides to this, two very reasonable sides to it, about competing with other sports, about weather, about transfer windows, and aligning with international calendars, aligning with FIFA calendars. There were two very, very reasonable sides to each. Now, when you get people starting to talk about, they have to do what the Europeans are doing, that is not a reasonable argument in favor of doing something. We don't want to copy it. We want to keep the Americanness about MLS. We don't want to just be another European league. And I hope everyone can agree with me on that. And even the league said, with the new calendar change, we're going to have to look at a new playoff format, a new postseason format, and they said in that statement that they want to keep some things that are uniquely American to Major League Soccer. So they recognize that there's American tradition here that's part of their game. Okay, getting back to Ryan, who says this is the wrong move and it will stunt MLS's growth. While there are some pros, I do not think they outweigh the cons. As you mentioned, I listened to David Sampson, a former president of baseball for the Marlins. Well, I love a good cross-sport comparison here, Ryan. He did not seem convinced that this would help with the popularity. From more soccer-centric podcasts and videos, almost everyone seems on board, but I think they're failing to look at the bigger sport economy picture of the U.S., and most foreigners wouldn't understand. The only way this, in my mind, could work is from a strictly business point of view. Well, I think that's the way that the ownerships are voting on this one, Ryan, whether you agree with it or not, or like it or not. I think the owners now have to invest so much money that they would like some return on investment. That clearly isn't coming from tickets or Apple TV fast enough, good points. I feel that the owners did this to more easily sell players to Europe, but I think that's a very short-sighted view. Before I get to your last sentence, the real one that's going to cause some discussion here, Ryan, I think I just want to harken back to the point I was saying before. If it's easier for them to sell players to Europe, that's more money coming in, that is more money available for the league to relax the roster restrictions to then go back and sign. So it's very cyclical, I think, in that sense, that you need to sell players to get more money in order to sign better players. So if the United States can sell, if every club in MLS can sell a handful of homegrowns or young players or U22s that they've signed from overseas and developed here in MLS and sell them off in order to sign those 2 or 3 big stars for their team, then I think that's a decent investment, or a decent model, right? Because if you look at it now, the United States development model is ahead of many, many, many other countries in the world, and we're even getting it to see a little bit of it with the Chicago Fire's signing of the new South African center back. That South Africa is saying, hey, this guy should go straight to the Premier League. Why is he just taking his bag and going and playing in a crappy MLS? Well, first of all, it shows that South African soccer fans don't know anything about Major League Soccer, at least the most vocal ones on social media don't, which is kind of par for the course on social media. But it does show that MLS is a league that top leagues in Europe will purchase players from, will scout players. Premier League scouts aren't checking out the Orlando Pirates in South Africa, but they are looking at the Chicago Fire. So that's where the U.S. has positioned itself, and MLS has positioned itself above a lot of these other countries in terms of developing young players to be able to sell to bigger clubs, bigger leagues, to the highest levels. The Major League Soccer is really filling that middle tier development stage for these players, and again, for international clubs. So if the MLS can keep that position and they can get a lot of international talent into MLS, get them to take the next step in their development, and then sell them all to larger clubs or better leagues, top leagues, then you reinvest that in signing 2 or 3 of your own DPs or of your own max TAM or star players or whatever the rules are going to say in the future. So I agree with you, Ryan. If this were just a quick cash grab to try and appease the ownership, yes, it is a very short-sighted view, but I do think there's a little bit more long-term planning and thinking that has gone into this. Okay, Ryan finishes his email here with a very interesting point. He says, hypothetical. USL does make Division 1 status because of their promotion and relegation in 2028. I think more foreign players than currently will consider that league playing in USL than they currently do now, because at that point, USL won't be able to compete with pay. If they stay on their current calendar, I think they will capture more hearts and minds due to the sheer number of teams and promotion and relegation. Then eventually they will overtake MLS in terms of US popularity, and at that point I believe there will be a league merger, which would be best for US soccer in general. So a lot to break down in your hypothetical here, Ryan. It's a very cool thought to think that we have 2 separate soccer entities developing in 2 distinct pathways, that Major League Soccer has now changed their calendar for the 2028 season to a traditional European style, I'll call it that, calendar. They have their academy systems, they have their training centers, they have youth development, they have all those things there, and are slowly trying to build up and become a top 10 league in the world. Then you've got USL, should they attain Division 1 status from U.S. soccer. They are staying in the more American soccer calendar, spring to fall. They are very, very community interested, grassroots type of things, local fan bases, tons and tons of different teams. Like you said, you'll have USL Championship 1 and 2. They have the 2 women's leagues. Like, they have so much going on. There's so many players there that they definitely can be in the forefront of American soccer fans' minds. I don't think they can compete with MLS until they start getting their own academies set up, until they can start having a robust youth system. Because right now, all the best young players, in their early teens and teen years, are going into MLS academies are going into MLS Next Pro affiliated clubs. There's very few. Again, this is just from my basic understanding of USL. I haven't researched most of their clubs or any of their clubs, to be honest. But I know a number of USL clubs do have youth teams, but I don't think they have the structure like Major League Soccer. I don't think they have the developmental path to say that it's mostly like, hey, here's our youth team, here's our senior team, here's our women's team. We're going to coach them that way. Again, I'm speaking from a point of ignorance, so don't take me at my word. But USL doesn't seem to have a unified pathway like MLS as an organization does, and like a club like the Chicago Fire does, from discovery camps at the age of U8 and U10, from an academy that starts at the U13 level up through their older academies into CF2 into the senior club. So I don't see USL having that anytime soon. It is interesting to think of a merger because that would really have the biggest impact, where all of a sudden you've got your 30 MLS clubs merging with maybe another 30 top USL clubs, and now you can have a top tier semi-open or open system with top flight 20 teams, middle flight 20 teams, bottom flight 20 teams, and then have promotion and relegation within that, should you so choose. So that's a really interesting thing, and you're not the first person to tell me that USL and MLS should merge. So really interesting thought there, really interesting conversation, Ryan. I do love your sign off here, but hey, I'm just a cybersecurity guy, so who knows? Hey, I'm just a claims adjuster myself, so who knows? So I appreciate you writing in and kind of sparking this conversation. I've probably talked a lot more than I really should have about the topic. We're 15 minutes in, and I haven't talked about the Fire or Major League Soccer, but Ryan, always great to see a message from you pop up in my inbox. Before we move into the heart of the Fire content, I do want to make a correction from something I said in a prior episode of when they released the 2026 schedule. I just put it out of my mind that they only had 4 non-conference games. They have 6 non-conference games. Again, 14 opponents in the conference, home and away, 28 games, 6 non-conference games for a total of 34 in the season. So let me just refresh all your memories. They open the season at Houston, so that's their first non-conference game. Then their next non-conference game is at home against Kansas City. That's in April. Other non-conference games, Vancouver at home in July, Portland at home in August, Seattle away in August, and Colorado away in October. So those are your 6 non-conference games. Let me make sure I can count. Colorado, Seattle, Portland, Houston, Kansas City, and who did I forget? Vancouver. All right. So just wanted to make sure that I corrected that. Now, speaking of Vancouver, MLS Cup is set, and we have the Inter Miami, I don't know what I was going to call them, the Herons of Miami, I don't know. Anyway, we've got Inter Miami facing off against the Vancouver Whitecaps in the final. So this will be the first MLS Cup opportunity for either of these two teams. Also, a fun little bit of trivia, it'll be the first time that a World Cup winner will also have an MLS Cup trophy, and we're talking about like Messi, DePaul for Miami, and Mueller for Vancouver. So it'll be the first time that a player will have both an MLS Cup championship and a World Cup trophy. The other little bit of trivia out of this one, which for the second year in a row now, the Chicago Fire have beaten both MLS Cup finalists in the regular season. So the Chicago Fire defeated Miami and Vancouver this year. I forget what their season split was with Miami, but obviously they got, I think it was 1-1 split, but they got the win to secure their own playoff berth. And then last year, they beat the Red Bulls and the Galaxy, the 2 teams in the finals. So Chicago, you know, we've always been trying to see how are they going to measure up to the top teams. Well, apparently they're doing okay by one metric. Let's see if they can, in the 2026 season, make that leap and actually be competitive with clubs like Philly, Cincinnati, Miami. For those of you who are going to tune into the game, it is this Saturday, December 6th, 1:30 p.m. Central. It's taking place at Chase Stadium in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. available on MLS Season Pass, Apple TV, Fox Deportes, and if you're up in Canada, TSN and RDS. I typically don't make predictions on this kind of thing because I usually do it with my heart. I really don't want to see Miami win this. I'm going to predict Vancouver, but man, Vancouver's got to play a near perfect game if they are going to end up defeating Miami. I mean, Messi is just on a tear. The team has confidence. There are role players who are stepping up in Miami. Vancouver is going to have to play a near perfect game. They are going to need a lot out of Takaoka and net, as well as some offensive output to keep Miami on their heels. If this turns into a shootout, I feel like it'll favor Miami a little bit more. I don't know Vancouver's history this season in 3, 4, 5 goal games, but I just have that feeling that a higher scoring game would end up favoring Miami, or a higher tempo game would end up favoring Miami. But we'll see what Vancouver comes out with. Again, game this Saturday, December 6th, and also St. Nicholas Day for all you who celebrate like I do. Now, turning back to the Chicago Fire, they have made their roster decisions that they have released. Go to their club website. You can see the full article, but here's the breakdown. On the current roster, we have Chris Brady and Jeff Gall. Defenders, Leo Barroso, Chris Cupps, Jonathan Dean, Jack Elliott, who signed a new contract with the Fire, Omar Gonzalez, who will actually be a player coach for CF2, Andrew Gutman, Victor Radojevic, Justin Reynolds, Sam Rogers, and Joel Waterman. Midfielders, Kellen Acosta, Jonathan Bamba, Dylan Borso, Jay Davila, Andre Franco, Brian Gutierrez, Marin Haile Selassie, Chris Mueller, Mauricio Pineda, Omari Glasgow, Sergio Orahel Jr., David Pareba, Anton Saletros, Robert Terdean, who technically is off roster because he's 15 and signed a contract and is playing with CF2. So technically not part of the first team roster, but under contract. Sam Williams and Philip Zinkernagel round out the midfielders. And as far as forwards go, Dean Bolts, Hugo Kuipers, and Georgios Koutsias. We all know that Koutsias has spent the last season on loan with FC Lugano. So, I'm sorry, Jack Elliott didn't sign a new contract. The Fire exercised their contract option to keep Elliott around for another season. They also exercised the contract option on Sam Williams. So that was the roster update as of last Wednesday, but we know the Chicago Fire have been working hard from day one of their postseason, or as they're viewing it, day one of their preseason. They signed Saletros, they signed Franco, they got the extension done, or they picked up the option for Williams and Elliott, but also they addressed their need for a new center back. And we've been talking about Mbekezeli Mbokazi, pardon me for the pronunciation, from South Africa. The deal is now official, and here's the press release from the Chicago Fire as of today, Tuesday, December 2nd. Chicago Fire FC today announced the club has acquired defender Mbekezeli Mbokazi from Orlando Pirates of South Africa's Betway Premiership. Mbokazi will occupy a U22 initiative slot and an international roster position, and his contract will run through 2029 with a club option for 2029-30 season. Per club and MLS policy, terms of the deal were not disclosed. So that's the initial information on this. I love how now they're saying that they had to change their contracts because of the schedule change that's going to take place in the future. So he's got a club option for the 29-30 season. And even though they don't release the terms of the deal, it has been reported that it was about a $3 million transfer fee. A lot of people in South Africa are saying, well, he better get a higher paycheck than what we were paying him here. I would like to think the Chicago Fire are going to do right by him and maybe give him a little bit of a bump in salary at some point, if not immediately so upon signing the transfer here. But again, this is a $3 million transfer fee, so that's all going to get taken into account. Now let's hear from the head coach and director of football, Greg Berhalter, who says, "We're excited to welcome Mbekezeli to the club as we further strengthen our back line. In his young career, he's already shown high potential and proven himself to be a strong leader and competitor on the international level. We expect immediate impact and room to grow in the future." End quote. The article continues on. Mbokazi, who's 20, already has meaningful competitive experience at the pro and international levels, having played over 35 matches in the South African Premiership and the African Champions League, as well as the Premiership MTN 8, Carling Knockout, and Nedbank Cup, so some more local competitions that he's played in. He won the 25-26 MTN 8 Cup with the Pirates, defending their title with a 3-0 win against Stellenbosch. I'm not sure what the MTN 8 Cup is, but again, it sounds like, an internal tournament there. At the international level, though, he's already gotten some call-ups. He's made his mark with both the South Africa U20 men's team as well as the senior South African squad. He helped the U20 South Africans qualify for the Africa Cup of Nations, debuted for the senior team just this past May, and has been called up for FIFA World Cup qualifiers during this last window in September. So even the South African national team is looking to him as part of their future. So this guy's got a lot of upside. Oh, here's the pronunciation guide at the bottom. Mbekezeli Mbokazi. So I got to make sure I get there. Mbokazi. So the K is silent in the last name. Got it. Mbekezeli Mbokazi. All right, let's learn all that, Fire fans. Here we go. So plays defense. He's 5'10", 190, born September 19th, 2005 in Lulue, South Africa, and again coming from Orlando Pirates in the South African League. So a lot of potential there. I love that the Fire have signed him through the 29-30 season. That is an excellent contract, because if he balls out in the first 2 years with the Chicago Fire, and I know Greg's going to take part of the season his first season to integrate him. I doubt he'll be starting on day one unless he really has a great off-season, preseason training with the Fire. I expect him to get a lot more playing time towards the second half of the season. And then in the 2027 season, possibly have a starting spot taking over for Elliott or Waterman, depending on their situations and age and health and all of that. And so if he handles himself well, like a great starting center back would in Major League Soccer, then I'm sure clubs in Europe are already looking at this young, talented, physical specimen here, and are going to keep an eye on what he does in MLS. And so that'll be a great way for the Fire. Take 2 years to get him to the next level, to get him ready for a big transfer. And then when you transfer him, whatever club buys him will have 1 year plus an option year on his contract left. So they could get 2 years out of him. So that is a fantastic deal. And then they can re-sign him with their bigger resources and bigger pocketbooks and no roster salary restrictions, and keep him on for another 3-4 years or whatever the case may be. So this is an excellent contract that the Chicago Fire signed. I think a $3 million transfer fee is reasonable for a player with such upside. And if he ends up staying in MLS for another contract, then having a starting center back for 5-6 years, not bad for a $3 million transfer fee. So I'm a big fan of this move. I think it's great. And once again, the Chicago Fire scouting department thinking outside the box, going to South Africa after going to Sweden, after last season raiding Portugal. Like, they're doing some great work. Now, speaking of transfers, let's talk Brian Gutierrez a little bit. We had heard a couple weeks ago that Chivas wanted to sign him. Apparently they still do by some recent reporting. But Chivas kind of made the first offer to the Fire. Gutierrez did get his Mexican passport, so he would be considered a domestic player in Liga MX. But it was nowhere near the Chicago Fire's valuation for it. Then enter Club America and Monterrey. And both of those clubs I think Club America did not make an offer, but Monterrey did make an offer. And I don't know if the Fire outright rejected it or if there's still some negotiating and counteroffers going on. But now Chivas has made an official offer, a formal offer to Gutierrez. Now, I think this was good gamesmanship, good business gamesmanship by Chivas. Be the first one in. Let Gutierrez know that we want you. We were the first one through the door, despite not coming anywhere near the Fire's valuation of him. But now they see what America and Monterrey, at least what Monterrey are offering, and they can match that and leave it to Gutierrez to say, I want to go play at Chivas over Monterrey, so please, Chicago Fire, if the numbers are similar, I'd like to go to Chivas instead, do the deal there. So nice little business gamesmanship by Chivas. So let's go over this article. It's from Digital AM. It was by Cesar Luis Merlo that came out on November 28th. Chivas Guadalajara have entered the race to sign Mexican-American Brian Gutierrez. According to information obtained by Super Deportivo, Chivas has made a formal offer to acquire the Chicago Fire player, and negotiations are progressing. A few days ago, so prior to November 28th, this media outlet revealed that Rayados de Monterrey are interested in having Gutierrez as a reinforcement, so they sent an offer to the Chicago Fire to buy the contract. And although the offer was good, it's not what the Chicago Fire had asked for. So even Monterrey came in a little under the Chicago Fire's valuation. Chivas' offer is similar to the one made by Monterrey, and the Chivas management is waiting a response from the American club. According to Super Deportivo, both Rayados and Chivas are close to the asking price set by the Chicago Fire. Right now, these two clubs are the closest to signing him, although a third option is not ruled out, as the player has gained relevance in the market prior to the Clausura 2026 tournament of Liga MX. Therefore, in Mexican soccer, Gutierrez would not occupy a foreign player spot because he had obtained his Mexican passport at the beginning of November. And they give you his brief stats here. Gutierrez, 22 years old, has played over 2,300 minutes in 35 games this past season, scoring 11 goals and providing 4 assists. So that's the latest out of Mexico for Gutierrez. Now, if he goes to Chivas, I'd be okay with it as long as he gets the most playing opportunity there. I'd prefer he ends up with Monterrey or even Club America, but I don't think he fits. I don't know. I feel like Club America isn't really looking to bring in budding MLS stars. But anyway, that could just be my own sentiments, not based on anything. But I would like to see him really excel for Monterrey, and if Club America does come in with a good bid, take that deal. Those are the two biggest clubs in Mexico. I think from a recent success standpoint in the North American continent, he'll get tons of exposure. He'll get Champions Cup, Club World Cup experience, all these sort of things, international stuff. And he does need to get out of his comfort zone a little bit, get away from Chicago to continue to grow as a person and a player. So I would like to see him in those clubs. Now, again, I say I'd prefer him. All things being equal, I hope he goes to Monterrey. Second, Club America, then Chivas, if those are his only 3 options. We don't know if there's anyone from Europe coming in at the last minute. Again, there were some Roma rumors last season about it, but nothing came of it. But if he's going to get the most playing time with Chivas, if he's coming in as a penciled-in starter for Chivas versus come on into Monterrey, and I know you got to prove your spot, you got to prove your starting spot at every team you go to, but if he's going to come in as the penciled-in starter in Chivas, they love him, they want him, they can build around him, they can work with him, then go there. That's the best for his development, and we're going to get to see him play even more. I don't want the Brandon Vasquez treatment for him to go to Monterrey, get a couple starts. He's not the immediate impact that they had hoped for, and then he's riding the bench and comes back to MLS in another year or two. So that's the latest from Gutierrez, and that's kind of my thoughts on that. Speaking of other American players abroad, and speaking of transfer rumors, there's been some little snips of talk about, well, the Chicago Fire forwards, since they released, or not released, but they did not renew Tom Barlow's contract. They denied his 2026 option. Again, the only forwards they have: Hugo Kuipers, current MLS player, Golden Boot candidate, star of the league, right? Hugo Kuipers. Dean Bolts, coming up from CF2, not too far removed from playing college soccer. And Georgios Koutsias. Those are their 3 rostered strikers. So let's turn to Koutsias, because people are saying, well, we need to work on the defense and we need to work on the midfield, but we also need to sign a backup striker. Though I did like the comments saying now that Benteke his option was declined by DC, or he's out of contract with DC. People are saying, hey, why don't the Fire go sign Benteke and have him and Kuipers up top? That would be wild. All you would just see is just lobbing crosses in and having those 2 guys just go up and get them. It would be a wild game plan. It would be fun for a couple games. I don't know if I would want to see that for an entire season, and I don't know if it would work in a playoff 1-game type of scenario, but man, that would be fun to see for a season. Not advocating for it. But you've got Kuipers. He's your starter. Who's your backup? Is Dean Boltz going to leap into that backup role? Is Dean Boltz ready to play 15 to 25 minutes of MLS soccer week in and week out, maybe get some spot starts in US Open Cup or Leagues Cup, wherever the case may be? I don't think he's there yet. Now, I haven't read up on him, I haven't scouted him, but just how new he is to the professional levels, I don't think he's ready. He's their development project. Are they going to be able to move Pareba from his midfield designation to the striker and have him back up? Potentially, but again, he hasn't done it at the MLS level. So he's another development project, right? And I'm not using that in a negative way. They're kids. They just got to get their time. They got to get their minutes. They got to get their coaching. They got to get developed. So that leaves Koutsias. Why wouldn't we want to recall Koutsias from his loan? Why wouldn't we want to keep him here in Chicago to come and back up Kuipers for a year? Well, Koutsias has been playing okay in Lugano. He's been doing good things with that club. And there is a rumor that AEK Athens in the Greek Super League, one of the top teams in Greece, has said, we're looking for a backup striker, and Koutsias is someone we're keeping an eye on. Obviously, young Greek striker, plays for the Greek under-21 national team, has had a good run of form with them over the last year or two, proved to be a decent backup in MLS, a hard worker, fast, needed to work on his finishing touch, which he's getting in Lugano. So there is a rumor out there that he could go to AEK, and this rumor is reported on Transfer Market, that website, who also value him currently at 3 million euros. So over $3 million value for Koutsias. That could be a deal the Fire would say, hey, we developed this guy a little bit. We gave him time in MLS. We gave him time in Switzerland. He's going to be worth 4 or 5 million as a young striker, someone who's got Greek national team aspirations. This is going to be a good piece of business. Let's move Koutsias. If AEK wants him, then let's talk. Again, it wasn't anything solid. The quote from what I'm reading on Transfer Market was that AEK's looking at strikers. One of the strikers on their list is Georgios Koutsias. So he could be returning to Greece if the rumors end up being true. He could come back to the Fire and back up Chicago. I would love that. I would love to see Koutsias behind Kuipers. I think they could do a great, starter backup. I think they could do a great dual striker system with either of them, especially if Kuipers starts dropping deep, unleashing Koutsias on those runs in behind. I think that would be a fantastic thing to try. I wonder what Greg Berhalter would want to do with a striker of Koutsias' caliber. Not quite starter, but definitely better than a full-time backup. That'd be an interesting choice. Usually those guys get sold to a team who needs the full-time striker. So that's why I'm not too in on Koutsias coming back, just because I don't think it will happen. But man, I would love to see my fellow Greek back in Chicago wearing the Fire red. All right, let's talk a few other transfers and roster updates from around the league, just so you can stay up to date. We'll do this lightning round style, and then we'll wrap for the week, or for this episode at least. I might do another one later this week. Robin Janssen signs a contract extension with Orlando City, so the defender will stick around through 2027. Minnesota United is in talks with Dane St. Clair and Robin Lod for new contracts. Hugo Lloris is in discussions with LAFC, their keeper, for a new contract or an extension. Brenner is in talks with FC Cincinnati, looking for a return to the MLS club. Michael Ura is out of contract with Philadelphia. Doesn't look like they intend to re-sign him. Again, Jack Elliott had his option picked up by the club. He'll be back for another year. Columbus Crew have exercised their options for Steven Moreira and Jason Russell-Rowe. Good move by the Crew there. I think those two players have proven themselves this season. The Rapids have declined the option on Andreas Maxo. Earthquakes have not re-signed Christian Espinoza, so he is out of contract. That's an interesting player. That is a player who's been around the league a bit, who, even though is 30 years old, still has some game left in him. How long has he been in Major League Soccer? He has been with San Jose since the 2019 season. So 7 seasons in MLS in San Jose. Best season he had by the numbers, 22 or 23, 7 goals, 14 assists, or 13 goals, no assists. But man, double-digit assists for the last 2 seasons. 12 this year, 14 the year before. In 2023, he took on goal-scoring role, 13 goals, no assists. So this could be a guy. Could this be an attacking midfielder that the Fire could bring in to stopgap between Gutierrez, assuming he gets transferred, and the return of Andre Franco? I think this would be a really interesting signing. If they can get a good deal on it, it might be worth it. Looking at his games played each season, he had one season. Oh, it was the 2020 season. That's why it's only 23 appearances. So he's played no less, excluding the COVID year, no less than 30 matches each year from 2019 to present. Last year had 31 appearances, 30 starts. In 23 and 24, he started every game of the season. So I think this could be a really good pickup for the Fire if they can get Espinoza at a reasonable price, have him come in. Now, is he going to exactly fit what Berhalter wants to do? I don't know. He's been playing under Arena and having results, so maybe there's a little familiarity with some of the coaching styles from the U.S. men's national team, potentially. I'm making it a stretch here. I know I'm trying to convince myself why we should pick up Christian Espinoza. I think he bring a little bit of that toughness as well. Let's see, 8 yellow cards this year, 5 the year before, 6 the year before that. So some toughness, no red cards though, other than his first season where he picked up 4 red cards back in 2019. So I think this could be a very interesting signing. Let me know what you think, Fire fans. Email me, glasshouseSoccer@gmail.com, or find me on social media at GlassHouseSoccer. Let's see, any other names? Julio Cascante and Diego Rubio had their contract options declined by Austin. The Union have re-signed Indiana Vasilev to a new contract. Stefan Fry and Paul Rothrock are out of contract in Seattle. We'll see if they work something out or if they end up moving. Andrew Farrell gets a new contract in New England. Let's see, any other names to know about? Wilfred Zaha and Pep Biel will remain with Charlotte for the 2026 season. And yeah, Sebastian Legit and Pedrino are out at FC Dallas. Would you guys want Sebastian Legit to come to Chicago and be kind of a backup or spot starter attacking midfielder? That would be, I don't know. You think Berhalter would bring in an aged Sebastian Legit? I don't know. That's interesting. Let's see. Sebastian Legit, 33 years old. This last season down in Dallas, he started 14 games, had 20 total appearances, 1 goal, 3 assists. He would be a backup midfielder at best for the Fire, who I think are trying to move away from the kind of player profile that Sebastian Legit brings. All right. Well, that's it. We're about 45 minutes in, so I'm going to thank you all for tuning in, listening. Please, let's continue to grow the show. If you haven't subscribed on YouTube, please do so. If you haven't followed along on social media, please do so. Please turn on alerts, follows, downloads for the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. I really do appreciate all the support, the messages, the likes, the retweets, all of that sort of thing. It's great. We are a little over 200 subscribers on YouTube, little over 200 weekly downloads for the podcast. I'd love to get that number up to 300 by preseason camp. I think that during this offseason, we can continue to grow the show, provide some great content, provide some place for discussion and discourse, and above all, provide a place to support the Fire. Let's go Fire. See you in the next one.